I think I didn't do anything wrong, just made one stupid mistake at a party. But now I'm sitting here with legal papers in my hand, my phone lighting up with messages from my family, and I honestly can't believe how fast my life fell apart over something that should have stayed between us. Let me start from the beginning, because maybe if I tell this story the right way, you'll understand that I'm not the villain everyone's making me out to be. Nu auf hier Ting. The sunlight streaming through our bedroom curtains felt like a personal attack. My head was pounding, my mouth tasted like regret and cheap champagne, and Simon was already up, which was unusual for a Sunday morning, after his best friend's wedding. I could hear him downstairs with Eva, our 7-year-old, making what sounded like pancakes based on the sizzling and her delighted giggles. I should have felt happy. It had been a beautiful wedding, and for once, our little family had seemed normal. But as I lay there, fragments of the previous night started piecing themselves together like a jigsaw puzzle I didn't want to complete. The reception had been lovely. Simon looked handsome in his navy suit, Eva had been the perfect flower girl, and I'd felt genuinely proud to be Mrs. Gray. But then came the after party at Murphy's bar, and everything got complicated. I'd been frustrated with Simon for weeks. He'd been working late constantly, barely talking to me except about Eva's school schedule or household logistics. When was the last time he'd really looked at me? When had we last had a real conversation that wasn't about bills or his mother's opinions about our parenting? So when Bryce Morgan, one of Simon's groomsmen and his old college friend, started paying attention to me at the bar, it felt nice. He remembered things about me that Simon seemed to have forgotten. He laughed at my jokes. He made me feel seen. Araminta? Simon's voice drifted up from downstairs. Coffee's ready. I dragged myself out of bed and pulled on my robe, trying to push away the memory of Bryce's hands on my waist as we danced to some terrible pop song. Nothing serious had happened. We just talked, maybe flirted a little. Everyone does that at weddings. Downstairs, Eva was covered in syrup and chattering about how she wanted to be a bride when she grew up. Simon handed me a mug of coffee without making eye contact. Thanks, I said, studying his profile. He looked tired, older somehow than he had yesterday. Hell of a party last night, wasn't it? Was it? His tone was flat, distant. Come on, don't be like that. We haven't had fun like that in months. You should be thanking me for getting you out of your shell. Simon finally looked at me, and something in his expression made my stomach clench. Is that what you call it? Before I could ask what he meant, the doorbell rang. Simon's parents, Linda and Terry, stood on our porch with a casserole dish and matching expressions of concern. We thought we'd check on you all after last night, Linda said, her sharp eyes scanning my face like she was reading a medical chart. Such a lovely wedding, though things got a bit spirited at the after party. My cheeks burned. Just people letting loose, Linda. Nothing wrong with having fun. Of course not, dear. But her smile didn't reach her eyes. Terry gave Simon a meaningful look that I couldn't decipher, and they disappeared into the kitchen for what I assumed would be another one of their private father-son conversations. Linda stayed with me in the living room, watching Eva color, while making small talk that felt anything but small. Bryce seemed to be enjoying himself last night, she said casually. Sweet boy. Though I always worry about young men who drink too much at weddings. They can make poor choices. Everyone was drinking, Linda. It was a celebration. She adjusted Eva's crayon selection with the precision of a surgeon. I just hope everyone remembers that celebrations have consequences. I was about to ask her what exactly she meant when my phone buzzed on the coffee table. A text from Bryce. We need to talk about last night. My blood turned to ice water. I reached for the phone, but Linda's hand was faster. Oh, sorry, dear. I thought that was mine. She handed it back with a smile that could have cut glass, though I couldn't help but notice the name. Isn't that Simon's friend? Just wedding planning stuff. Leftover details. The lie tasted bitter. Of course. Linda's voice was honey over broken glass. Though the wedding's over now, isn't it? I was frantically trying to think of a response when Simon walked back into the room, holding my phone with an unreadable expression. My heart stopped. You left this in the kitchen, he said quietly. It's been buzzing. The way he looked at me, like he was seeing a stranger wearing his wife's face, told me everything I needed to know. Somehow, Simon knew. But how much? By Monday morning, I was in full crisis management mode. I'd spent Sunday night lying awake next to Simon's rigid form, trying to figure out exactly what he knew and how to contain it. He'd barely spoken to me after his parents left, and when I'd tried to bring up Bryce's text, he'd simply said, "Handle it however you think is best, Araminta." That tone, formal, distant, scared me more than yelling would have. At work, I found myself confiding in my coworker Jessica during our lunch break. The retail store where I managed the evening shift wasn't exactly a hotbed of intellectual discourse, but Jessica was a good listener, and, more importantly, she was on my side. Men are so dramatic about everything, she said, picking at her salad. So what if you danced with someone at a party? Simon should be flattered that other guys find his wife attractive. Exactly. I felt a rush of validation. I mean, if he paid half as much attention to me as he does to his computer programs, maybe I wouldn't need to look elsewhere for conversation. Has he always been this jealous? He's gotten worse since Eva started school. He's so focused on being the perfect provider that he's forgotten how to be a husband. The words felt true as I said them, which made them easier to believe. Jessica nodded sympathetically. My ex was the same way. Work, work, work. Then he'd get mad when I wanted to have a social life. Some men just can't handle independent women. I left work feeling better, more justified in my actions. Simon was the problem here, not me. I'd simply responded to neglect the way any woman would. But that confidence evaporated when I walked into our usual Tuesday family dinner at Rosario's, the Italian place where Simon's family had been gathering for years. The atmosphere was arctic. Linda barely acknowledged me beyond a polite nod. Terry kept his eyes on his menu like it contained the secrets of the universe. Even Maya, my younger sister, who usually served as the family diplomat, seemed subdued. So, Maya said carefully, cutting her chicken parmigiana into precise squares. Interesting wedding weekend. It was beautiful, I said firmly. David and Sarah looked so happy. They did, though I heard the after-party got pretty wild. Simon's fork clinked against his plate. Define wild. The table went silent. Eva, bless her, kept coloring on her kid's menu, oblivious to the tension crackling around us like static electricity. Just people having fun, I said, forcing lightness into my voice. Dancing, drinking, celebrating love. You know, normal wedding stuff. Normal, Simon repeated, like he was testing the word. Yes, normal. God, you're acting like I committed a crime. I'm allowed to enjoy myself, aren't I? Of course you are, Linda said smoothly. We just want to make sure everyone's comfortable with how they enjoyed themselves. The implication hung in the air like smoke. I felt my cheeks burning. I don't know what you're implying, but I didn't do anything wrong. If Simon has a problem with me talking to his friends, maybe he should have been talking to me himself. Maya's eyebrows shot up. Arimta, no, I'm serious. When's the last time Simon asked me about my day, my dreams? Anything that wasn't about Eva's schedule or the mortgage payment? Bryce actually listened to me. He treated me like a person, not just a wife and mother. The silence that followed was deafening. Terry cleared his throat uncomfortably. Linda's lips had disappeared into a thin line. Simon just stared at his plate. Daddy? Eva's small voice cut through the tension. Why aren't you talking to Mommy? Meh. Simon's face crumpled for just a moment before he composed himself. Just tired, sweetheart. Daddy's been working a lot. Mommy says you work too much. Does she? Simon's eyes met mine across the table, and I saw something in them that made my stomach drop. Not anger, that would have been easier to handle. This was disappointment, deep and cutting. He stood abruptly. I need some air. Simon, wait! But he was already walking away, leaving his dinner half finished and his family staring after him. Well, Linda said quietly. That was illuminating. Mom, Maya warned. What? I'm just saying that when a man can't look at his wife, there's usually a reason. There's no reason, I snapped. Simon's being dramatic because he can't handle the fact that I had a conversation with another man. He's insecure. Is that what you call it? Linda's voice could have frozen fire. A conversation? Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Maya told me there's trouble. Call me. Great. Now the whole family was involved. I excused myself to call my mother from the parking lot, where I found Simon leaning against his car, staring at nothing. Simon, can we please talk about this like adults? He turned to look at me, and for a moment, I saw the man I'd married. Gentle, thoughtful, kind. Then his expression shuddered. Araminta, he said quietly. I have proof. Those 4 words hit me like a physical blow. Proof of what? We'll discuss it at home. After Eva's in bed, he got in his car and drove away, leaving me standing in the parking lot with my phone ringing in my hand. My mother's name flashed on the screen, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. Whatever Simon had, whatever he thought he knew, I needed to figure out how to handle it. But first, I needed to talk to Bryce. Bryce wouldn't answer my calls. I'd tried him 6 times on the drive home from the restaurant, and each call went straight to voicemail. His text responses were terse. Can't talk now, not a good time. Let's just forget it happened. But I couldn't forget it happened, because apparently Simon couldn't either. I found him in his home office, laptop open, surrounded by papers that he quickly shuffled into a folder when I walked in. Eva's asleep, I said, closing the door behind me. Now what's this about proof? Simon leaned back in his chair, studying me with an expression I'd never seen before. Clinical. Detached. Like I was a problem to be solved, rather than his wife of 8 years. Sit down, Araminta. I don't want to sit down. I want to know what you think you know. I know you left Murphy's bar with Bryce at 11:47 p.m. on Saturday night. My heart hammered against my ribs. So? We were all leaving around the same time. I know you went to his apartment. He offered to share an Uber. It was on the way. I know you didn't come home until 3:23 a.m. I told you, I went to Jenny's after. We were talking about, Jenny was home with her kids Saturday night. I called her. The room spun slightly. I gripped the back of the chair I'd refused to sit in. You called her? Simon, that's... I know, because there's footage, Araminta. The words hit me like a slap. Footage of what? Simon opened his laptop and turned the screen toward me. The video was grainy, clearly shot on someone's phone, but the image was unmistakable. Me, pressed against the wall outside Murphy's bar, Bryce's hands tangled in my hair, his mouth on mine. This was posted in David's wedding group chat Sunday morning, Simon said quietly. 43 people saw it before someone had the decency to tell me it existed. I stared at the screen, watching myself betray my marriage in high definition. The woman in the video looked desperate, hungry, nothing like the person I thought I was. It's not what it looks like, I whispered. What does it look like, Araminta? I was drunk. We both were. It was just a moment of stupidity. A moment. Simon's voice was eerily calm. That lasted from 11:47 p.m. until 3:23 a.m. Nothing else happened. We kissed, and then I realized what I was doing and I left. You left at 3:23 a.m. We talked. I was upset, confused. Bryce was helping me work through my feelings. About what? The question hung in the air. I could tell the truth, that I'd been feeling neglected, unappreciated, invisible in my own marriage. That Bryce had made me feel desired in a way Simon hadn't in months. That for a few hours, I'd felt like Araminta the woman instead of Araminta the wife and mother. But looking at Simon's face, I knew the truth wouldn't help. About us, I said instead. About how distant you've been. How you never talk to me anymore. So you decided to talk to Bryce instead. It wasn't planned. God, Simon, you're acting like I had some elaborate affair. I made a mistake. One stupid, drunken mistake. Show me your phone. What? Your phone. Show me your text messages with Bryce. My mouth went dry. That's private. Privacy. Simon's composure cracked slightly. You're talking to me about privacy? I deleted them. Of course you did. He closed the laptop with a sharp snap. Here's what's going to happen, Araminta. I've already spoken with a lawyer. I'm filing for separation. The words hit me like a physical blow. Simon, no, you can't. Think about Eva. I am thinking about Eva. I'm thinking about what kind of example we're setting. I'm thinking about what kind of home environment this is becoming. This is her home. Our home. You can't just. We can work through this. Couples therapy, counseling, whatever you want. I want you to move out. I'm not leaving my daughter. You're not taking her either. The finality in his voice terrified me. This wasn't the Simon I knew. The gentle, accommodating man who avoided conflict and always tried to see the best in people. This Simon was cold, methodical, unforgiving. You can't keep me from my child. I can try, and given the evidence I have, I like my chances. What evidence? A drunken kiss? That doesn't make me an unfit mother. Simon opened a drawer and pulled out a manila folder. There's more, Araminta. The kiss was just the beginning. He slid a photograph across the desk. It was dark, taken from a distance, but clear enough. Me and Bryce entering his apartment building, his arm around my waist, my head on his shoulder. Traffic camera, Simon said matter-of-factly. Timed at 12:15 a.m. Another photo, us leaving the same building. My hair was messed up, my dress wrinkled, and I was carrying my shoes in my hand. Same camera, 3:15 a.m. I stared at the photos, my mind racing. This proves nothing. We could have been talking, drinking coffee, anything. Could have been. Simon's voice was deadly quiet. But we both know you weren't. The weight of what I'd done, not just the physical betrayal, but the lies, the manipulation, the way I'd tried to make Simon feel crazy for suspecting the truth, crashed down on me all at once. Simon, please, I love you. I love our family. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake, but it doesn't have to end everything. It already has ended everything. He stood up, suddenly looking exhausted. I've already moved money into a separate account. I've spoken with Eva's school about the situation, and I've retained David Kowalski as my attorney. David Kowalski. I knew that name. He was the lawyer who'd handled Linda's friend's divorce, the one who was known for being ruthless. You've been planning this, I whispered. Since Sunday, you've been planning to destroy our family. I've been planning to protect what's left of it. By taking my daughter away from me, by making sure she has at least one parent she can trust. The words cut deeper than I thought possible. I never lied to Eva. You lied to everyone, Araminta, including yourself. He walked toward the door, then paused without turning around. You have until Friday to find somewhere else to stay. I'll have Maya pick up Eva from school, so she doesn't have to see you pack. Simon, wait, but he was already gone, leaving me alone with the photographs and the devastating realization that my marriage was over. I wasn't going down without a fight. If Simon thought he could just discard me like a broken appliance, he had another thing coming. I was Eva's mother, and no court in the world would keep a child from her mother over one night of poor judgment. My mother arrived Wednesday morning with reinforcements in the form of coffee, pastries, and righteous indignation. He's being absolutely ridiculous, Patricia declared, settling into my kitchen like a general planning a campaign. So you kissed someone at a party. Big deal. Men do it all the time and nobody threatens to take their children away. It was more than a kiss, Mom. I don't care if you slept with the entire wedding party. You're a human being with needs, and if Simon wasn't meeting them, that's on him. I wanted to feel comforted by her support, but something about the way she dismissed my actions made me uncomfortable. It wasn't that simple, was it? The point is, Patricia continued, he can't just throw you out of your own house. You have rights. Eva needs her mother. He has evidence, Mom. Photos, timestamps, witnesses. Evidence of what? That you're an adult woman who made an adult decision? Please. She waved her hand dismissively. Get yourself a good lawyer. Fight this nonsense. And whatever you do, don't let him make you feel guilty for having a life. But I did feel guilty. Not about Bryce. That had been a mistake, but not a crime. I felt guilty about the lies, about the way I'd tried to gaslight Simon into thinking he was being paranoid. I felt guilty about Eva, who'd been asking why Daddy was sleeping in the guest room and why Mommy kept crying. Most of all, I felt guilty about the fact that part of me wasn't sorry it happened. For those few hours with Bryce, I'd felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. Maya arrived that afternoon with a less sympathetic perspective. I saw the video, Araminta. Everyone's seen the damn video. Then you know how it looks. It looks like a woman having a moment of weakness at a wedding. It doesn't look like grounds for losing custody of my child. Maya sat down across from me at the kitchen table, her expression serious. It's not just the video, it's everything else. The lies, the way you've been talking about Simon, the way you're handling this now. How am I handling it? Like you're the victim. Like Simon is the bad guy for being hurt, that his wife cheated on him. The word hung in the air between us. Cheated. I'd been avoiding it, dancing around it, calling it a mistake or a moment of weakness. But Maya was right. That's what it was. I didn't plan for it to happen. But it did happen. And instead of owning it, you're making excuses. I'm not making excuses. I'm trying to save my marriage. Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're trying to win an argument. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Unknown number. Mrs. Gray? This is David Kowalski, your husband's attorney. I'm calling to inform you that we'll be filing a motion for temporary custody tomorrow morning. You're welcome to have your attorney present at the hearing on Friday. I don't have an attorney. Then I'd suggest you get one. Good day, Mrs. Gray. The line went dead. Maya was watching me with a mixture of sympathy and frustration. That was Simon's lawyer, I said numbly. They're going for temporary custody. Then you need to get serious about this. Stop making excuses, stop blaming Simon, and start figuring out how to prove you're a good mother. I am a good mother. I know you are, but right now, you're not acting like one. You're acting like a woman who's more concerned with being right than with what's best for her daughter. That night, after Maya left and Eva was asleep, I found myself standing in Simon's office, looking at the chair where he'd shown me the evidence of my betrayal. The room still smelled like his cologne, cedar and citrus, familiar and comforting. I'd destroyed this, all of it. The marriage, the family, the life we'd built together. And for what? A few hours of feeling desired by a man who wouldn't even take my calls now? I picked up the phone and dialed Bryce's number one more time. To my surprise, he answered. Araminta, I can't talk to you. Just listen, please. Simon's filing for custody. He has photos, video, everything. If you could just tell him that nothing really happened, something did happen. But not what he thinks. We kissed, but… Araminta, stop. The firmness in his voice silenced me. We both know what happened that night. We both know it was more than a kiss, and we both know it was wrong. So you're just going to let him destroy me? I'm going to stay out of it. This is between you and Simon. You were there too. Yeah, I was, and I've got to live with that. But I'm not going to make it worse by lying about it. The line went dead, leaving me alone with the truth I'd been trying so hard to avoid. I had cheated on my husband, I had lied about it, and now I was going to lose everything that mattered to me. The question was, did I deserve to? Friday morning arrived with all the warmth of a tax audit. I sat in the courthouse hallway, watching Simon and his lawyer review documents with the efficiency of a surgical team. My own attorney, hastily retained through a referral from my mother's book club, looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Mrs. Gray, he said, adjusting his glasses nervously, I need to be frank with you. The evidence against you is substantial. Photos, video, witness testimony, phone records showing you deleted text messages. Phone records. Mr. Gray's lawyer subpoenaed them. They show a pattern of communication with Mr. Morgan that began several weeks before the wedding, escalating in frequency and sent during times when you told your husband you were elsewhere. My stomach dropped. I'd forgotten about the earlier texts, the innocent flirting that had started when Bryce and I were planning a surprise party for Simon's birthday. Innocent at first, anyway. Look, our best strategy is to focus on your role as a mother. Eva needs you, regardless of what happened between you and your husband. But as we entered the courtroom, I could see Eva sitting between Linda and Terry, looking small and confused in her school uniform. She waved at me tentatively, and I felt my heart break all over again. Judge Morrison was a stern-looking woman in her 60s, who had the demeanor of someone who'd seen every possible human failing and wasn't impressed by any of them. Simon's lawyer presented his case with clinical precision. The video from the wedding, the traffic camera photos, phone records showing deleted messages, bank statements showing charges at a hotel the week before the wedding, charges I'd forgotten about, from when Bryce and I had met to discuss party planning and ended up in the hotel bar, then the hotel room. Your Honor, David Kowalski said, this wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment. This was a sustained affair that Mrs. Gray has repeatedly lied about, even under oath today. I never lied under oath, I protested, but my voice sounded weak even to my own ears. Gray, Judge Morrison said, did you or did you not testify that your relationship with Mr. Morgan was limited to one evening of poor judgment? I looked at the bank statements in her hands, at Simon's face, at Eva's confused expression. The relationship was complicated. How so? We were friends. We were planning a surprise party for Simon. Things got blurred. Blurred enough that you met Mr. Morgan at the Marriott downtown on 3 separate occasions? I felt the courtroom spinning around me. We were just talking. Gray, I'm going to ask you directly. Did you have sexual relations with Mr. Morgan on any of those occasions? The question hung in the air like a sword. I could lie, there was no video evidence from the hotel, no proof of what had happened behind closed doors. But looking at Eva, at the way she was watching me with those trusting brown eyes that were so much like Simon's, I couldn't do it. Yes, I whispered. The courtroom was silent, except for the sound of Patricia's sharp intake of breath, and Linda's quiet, "Oh, Simon." And did you lie to your husband about these encounters? Yes. And did you attempt to gaslight him when he became suspicious? My lawyer objected, but Judge Morrison overruled him. Yes, I said. the word barely audible. Judge Morrison leaned back in her chair, studying me with the expression of someone trying to solve a particularly distasteful puzzle. Mrs. Gray, help me understand something. You had multiple affairs with your husband's friend, lied about it repeatedly, attempted to manipulate your husband into believing he was paranoid, and now you're asking this court to grant you primary custody of your 7-year-old daughter. What exactly is your argument for why that would be in the child's best interest? I looked at my lawyer, but he was staring at his notes like they contained the secrets of the universe. I looked at my mother, who was crying quietly in the gallery. I looked at Maya, who was shaking her head sadly. Finally, I looked at Eva. Because I love her, I said simply. Because I'm her mother, and despite everything else, I love her more than anything in the world. Love isn't enough, Mrs. Gray. Parenting requires honesty, stability, and trustworthiness. Based on the evidence presented today, I'm granting temporary primary custody to Mr. Gray, with supervised visitation for Mrs. Gray, pending a full custody evaluation. The gavel came down like a gunshot. Eva started crying, not understanding what was happening but sensing that something terrible had occurred. Simon gathered her into his arms, whispering reassurances while shooting me a look that contained no anger, just profound sadness. As the courtroom emptied, I found myself sitting alone at the defendant's table, staring at the evidence of my own destruction. Photos, bank statements, phone records, a paper trail of lies and betrayal that had cost me everything I'd claimed to love. My mother approached hesitantly. Honey, we can appeal this. We can... No, Mom. I stood up slowly, feeling like I'd aged years in the past hour. We can't. What do you mean? I looked at the door where Simon and Eva had disappeared, probably heading home to start their new life without me. I mean, it's over. I did this. All of it. And now I have to live with the consequences. For the first time since this whole nightmare began, I was telling the complete truth. It felt strange, like speaking a foreign language I'd forgotten I knew. The bailiff approached politely. Ma'am, I need to ask you to clear the courtroom. We have another case starting in 5 minutes. I nodded, gathering my purse and what was left of my dignity. As I walked toward the exit, I passed Simon and Eva in the hallway. He was kneeling at her eye level, explaining something in the gentle, patient voice I'd fallen in love with all those years ago. Eva looked up and saw me. Mommy, are you coming home with us? Simon's eyes met mine over her head. For just a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I'd married. Kind, forgiving, hopeful. Then it was gone, replaced by the careful neutrality of someone who'd learned not to trust me. Not today, sweetheart, I said, kneeling down to hug her. But I'll see you soon, okay? Promise? I looked at Simon, who nodded slightly. I promise. As they walked away, Eva's small hand in Simon's larger one, I realized that this was what consequences looked like. Not dramatic or cinematic, just empty. A courthouse hallway, legal papers, and the sound of my daughter's voice asking when I was coming home. The bailiff cleared his throat gently. Ma'am? Right. Sorry. I stood up and walked toward the exit, toward whatever came next. Behind me, I could hear the next case being called. Life moving on as if mine hadn't just imploded. Outside, the sun was shining with the kind of cruel brightness that makes tragedy feel absurd. I sat on the courthouse steps, pulled out my phone, and did something I should have done weeks ago. I called Simon. What do you want, Araminta? I want to say I'm sorry. Really sorry. Not sorry I got caught. Not sorry things turned out badly. Sorry I hurt you. Sorry I lied. Sorry I tried to make you think you were crazy. Sorry I destroyed our family. The line was quiet for so long I thought he'd hung up. Okay, he said finally. That's it? Just okay? What else do you want me to say? I don't know. That you forgive me? That we can work through this somehow? I can't, Araminta. Not now. Maybe not ever. But Eva will always have both her parents. But you and I, we're done. You made sure of that. The line went dead. I sat there holding my phone, watching people walk in and out of the courthouse, dealing with their own crises and revelations and consequences. A young couple emerged, holding hands and laughing, probably having just gotten their marriage license. They looked so happy, so sure that their love could weather anything. I wanted to warn them, to tell them how easy it was to throw it all away for a moment of feeling desired, feeling seen, feeling anything other than invisible. But I didn't. They wouldn't have believed me anyway. I wouldn't have believed me back when I was them. Instead, I stood up, walked to my car, and drove to the apartment I'd rented with money borrowed from my mother. It was small, sterile, and quiet. nothing like the home I'd lost. I sat on the single chair in my empty living room and finally allowed myself to cry. Not for the marriage. That was gone. And Simon was right to end it. Not even for myself, though the future looked bleak and uncertain. I cried for Eva, who would grow up in a broken home because her mother couldn't resist the attention of a man who wouldn't even take her calls now. I cried for the trust I'd shattered, the lies I'd told, the person I'd become without even realizing it. Most of all, I cried because for the first time since this whole mess began, I understood that I wasn't the victim of circumstances, or Simon's jealousy, or society's double standards. I was the author of my own destruction, and the story I'd written had no happy ending. The sun set outside my single window, and I sat in the growing darkness, learning to live with the truth of what I'd done, and who I'd become. Tomorrow, I would start the long process of figuring out how to be a person Eva could be proud to call her mother. But tonight, I grieved for the family I'd destroyed, and the woman I used to be, before I learned that some mistakes can't be undone, some trust can't be rebuilt, and some consequences last forever. The legal papers sat on my coffee table, official and final: supervised visitation, custody evaluation, restraining order preventing me from going to the house that used to be mine. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts, looking for someone to call, someone who might understand or offer comfort. But the list looked foreign now. Friends who had probably seen the video, family members who were taking sides, coworkers who would gossip about this for months. I put the phone down and sat in the silence, learning to live with the sound of my own breathing and the weight of my choices. This was my life now. This was what I'd chosen, even if I hadn't meant to choose it. And tomorrow, I would have to figure out how to live with it. Not strenoa nekta out of robber, the jobber Thershan 4049.